Liberty Flights sponsors 10-year tip with Garry Dibley.
And he's checking for the echo, and there shouldn't be one. Yes, I'm now getting echo reminders every Monday night, which is a good thing. Good evening, it is a Monday night, it is 9 o'clock, it is time to tin your tip with myself, Garry Dibley, and the ever-capable mod master, that is Mark. Yeah, apologies for last week. I had a slight little problem in all directions, shall we say, and it wasn't pleasant. And yes, I am now over it, but the VAS is coming in useful to ease the parts that other beers cannot reach. Talking of beers, I've found a night. I'm gonna do a beer juice thing, because there are two things. One that I haven't seen for a long time, and a new thing. And one of them was this, which is the old. I shouldn't be advertising beer, but it's the old Bass. And it's nice, very nice stuff, and it's on offer at the moment for £1, so happy days. So we got some of that. And the other thing, I've found a website that was selling some juice that was recommended to me, a company called Vape Monk, and I've got a load of those stuff in, and there's this one that's called Hobbit's Choice, which absolutely blew me away, and I'm currently on their what's it called, Bazilla Custard. Now, Bazilla Custard and Bass go surprisingly well together. And I've got a little dripper. I mentioned earlier before we started, and I don't even see this. Our own Dave Malik is doing I think he's growing bodily hair. Obviously for the the thing that's coming up. You can see how well briefed I am, but he's going to be doing a bit of fundraising. And I'm going to be auctioning the doggy tin on our forum, on the UK Vapor, silly boy, Vapor Trails forum. I'll be putting this up, and we'll auction it over a week or so, and all the proceeds for when that sells will go to Mr. Malik's growing his facial hair thing. Happy days. We've got not much time this week. I'm going to go through a couple of repairs. We've broken some things down in a bit of detail, and what I'm trying to do is look at, if you like, some very simplistic repairs on mods that I see that sort of spam the forum. And I've had a few people say to me, can you show me how to repair this mod in this situation, etc, etc. So we're going to try and do a bit of that. And Mark I've named it the MF tin. And you'll see for reasons why coming up next. I'll be back in 2.
This week I'm going to be dealing with some resistance panels to make a resistance tester for atomizers, and due to problems with shipping I've ended up with 2 of them, 2 different types. And due to my stupidity of not checking sizes properly, I've ended up with something which is rather large, a lot bigger than I ever thought they were. What I'd intended to do was use one of these 9-volt battery boxes and put it in there with the connector, but as you'll see, it wouldn't leave a lot of room for anything else. These things really are huge. So slight change of plans, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with these. I'm going to be working with this one, I think, and until I watched last week's show I got inspired by a combination of Garry and some funny comments in chat. So what I'm going to mod this week is a tin of roses. Now, I've already marked out where I want the parts to go. So a display here, on-off switch, and an atomizer connector. Everything else will be underneath. And if I so desired, later on I could add an e-cigs circuit into this with another separate atomizer connector, a fire button, so you could test fire coils as well with this, but I'm just going to be concentrating on the display for this week. And this tin is lined because it was rather rusty inside, so I've lined it all out. So this will be used for storage for all my rebuilding supplies, tools, everything like that, all the wick wire, that sort of thing. So to work. Just clear all this away. The first job I'm going to want to do is to cut out the holes. I need to get this done first because I'm intending to paint this before it's used, so I want to have everything cut out, I'll paint it, and then I'll install all the components. So I'm with the vamo cutting this out. Let's see how it goes. Right, and as you see, I've now got a hole cut for a display. As you might have noticed, when I was cutting these sections, it was a lot harder than cutting this direction. And that is because one thing you really have to work on with this is to keep the angle of the blade as flat as possible so it's cutting square on. If it's cutting at an angle like that, it makes it much more difficult. So try and position your work so you cut it at a right angle to the whatever you're cutting. But it's done now. And hopefully, if I've measured this out right, which I probably haven't, this is pretty much going to fit inside there. It appears to be long enough, but I'm going to have to take a little bit off one side to finish it off, I think. Well, I'll just be knocked back, I think, with a file. So that'll do for now. Next, it's on with the drill. And it's as quick as that. Now, as usual, I've marked out at 11:30 seconds, which is the perfect size for the atomizer connector, and I'll have to move the next step up for the switch. I think possibly 2 steps for that. I haven't measured out exactly yet. Here we go. That's that one. I'll quickly adjust the tape. Down to the next step and get the next one.
Right, we're back again for another week, and this week I've had a few things land on my desk that need repair, so I thought we'd attempt some of those. Your typical used and abused and this and any other vamo mod. Now we could potentially stick this in something else, but this one I believe is going to be quite a simple fix. Centre pin's gone. We'll go through doing that because it is quite a common question in terms of how we do that. I'll show you that a little bit later on. This one here is an AnyVape GVI, and this has the sort of screen here. Now the makeup of this is very much similar to the SID in terms of the way that it is held together, and I have actually repaired a SID recently that has had the same sort of an issue. Now the screen is going to be quite difficult to see because it's not working, so I'm going to try and rush this, so maybe all fingers and thumbs, but effectively you've got your top section here and you've got a little screwy offy section for your, you know, your ego-y type jobbies. The problems tend to be in this end here, and you can get the top cap off by gripping that pin not too tightly because you don't want to snap the pin off, but giving it a little wiggle and that will come out. And there is hopefully your problem. On these particular ones, they don't have a physical wire between here, which is the centre or the POS input on the board, and the pin. It just relies on that being sort of almost probably goes in one hit and is sort of soldered to the top of it. Any drop or knock on that and that comes away. So the other thing is somebody's looking at this already had a go at putting or redoing the earth pin, because the earth pin literally rests up against the body, and it relies on this sandwiching the earth pin against the body. Not the best design in the world. Now, as I say, I'm going to try and attempt a hasty fix on this, and I'm just going to be cutting a little bit of wire down. I'm just going to make up a little sort of a link wire to this. So I'm just soldering up one end, and I'll make a small link, and I've got to try and get it relatively tiny because I don't want, when this goes down inside, to impede on the switch. So I'll try and get it round about as tiny as we can. And I'll just tin up the other end. So I'm making a really sort of small link. And what I'll do is I'll drop this down inside, because there is a POS pin off the board down here. And I'm just going to tack that on. It's difficult because it's doing up. It gets warm in your hands. Let me just hold it in here. Like I say, this might be a bit rushed and half-assed, but I might have to use these. It's a bit too warm. So there's a POS pin soldered down there on the board, and I'm just going to take this other end and solder that on the POS pin. So my top cap is now, if you like, got a link wire in on it. Now, sod's law, this never works first time, and you always end up jiggery-pokery in the hell out of it to try and get it to work. But let me just slot this top cap back in, and if we're lucky we might get it to fire. No, I've got nothing on there, which can only mean that my earth is not making a proper contact as well as the POS. So I'm going to have to take it back out again, and yeah, you can see my earth is now floating around in there because my board's blooming come with it. So I'm going to relieve this off here just for a tick. while we try and sort out that earth. Now you have to excuse me because I'm going to have to do this at an angle. I've got to try and rework this earth so it's sort of got a fix of sorts. Against the case. Like I say, this is a real jiggery pokery job, and it's just a way of trying to get it working again realistically. If it doesn't, then it will be a case of binning. Potentially, I think already I've heard that earth wire crack back off there. You can't really solder to these boards, they're a pain in the arse. Sorry, you can't solder to the tubes. So what I might do, I need the battery in there. And hopefully when I touch that up I'll be able to see if I get a connection. It's definitely the earth pin now that's causing the problem, because that is floating all over the shop. I bet if I touch that now. Yeah. So it's definitely my earth pin. Because just to show you, I've shorted that there. If I touch that there now, you can probably see the display's coming up. But I've got a bit too much solder down on the wall. Try again. Like I say, these are a bit jiggery pokery. What I'm going to do, pop away, and I've just now got to find a way of pinning this earth wire against this case. Once I've got that on, I'll give it one more bash while we're here, just to see whether we can get a blob to hold. Like I say, I'm not holding out much hope. No. I'll pop away, I'll play with that earth wire and come back in two. And there we go, we're back in the room. Yes, impossible to solder to aluminium. You can hold it on purely by, somebody said in chat, flux and lots of heat. But effectively all you're doing then is holding it on by the flux. It doesn't get a proper joint. The way that they make those particular mods when they put them together is bare wire. And literally they twist the bare wire together, poke it round the rim, and then sandwich that in with that little plastic connection. Absolutely stupid if you ask me, but there you go. We do get it working, and you'll see that in part 2. But let me slip into our first little ad break. We'll pop back very shortly after this.
Liberty Flight sponsors 10-Year Tip with Garry Dibley. iViber and iViber Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iViber.co.uk and iViber-elixir.co.uk. iViber and iViber-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of VaporTrails.tv. Liberty Flight sponsors 10-Year Tip with Garry Dibley.
And there we go, we're back in the room once again. Now, as I said, this isn't a bad mod. Now, when it works very, very, very well. I think you've got to be quite unfortunate and get a Friday afternoon job to have problems. You know, they do work. And to be honest, in the variable sort of wattage mode, it is a very, very good mod. Some people like to pull stuff apart and play with it, like I do. And some people, you know, you get a little problem, they put it apart, they don't put it back together again, and then they'll back it, which you do get, you know, which is why some of the vendors who have very good guarantees, you know, they don't ask any questions, they'll just replace it. But this one come back to me for repair. Somebody tried repairing it before, they tried soldering it, and I think basically what they'd done is where they'd soldered the pin inside, it just wasn't having it. Solder will not take to that sort of a surface, which is why they just strip it back and sort of roll it around the middle and clamp it down. Not the best, as I say, but you know, it's the way it's done. It's very much similar to the makeup of the SID, and you know, I've had a couple of SIDs and they work very, very well. Now let's crack on with Mark's big old box. This big old thing he's doing. Let's crack on. I'll pop back in two.
And with any luck, my switch will fit through. Of course, luck doesn't seem to be with me. I think I'll have to take it once more down. Even once more again. That switch is a bit bigger than I thought it was. Definitely big enough. There we go. So there we have the switch, and this particular switch is just a rocker switch, and it has on the back 6 pins. So the 3 pins on this side and the 3 pins there. So it's basically 2 switches in one, and there's no connection between this side and this side. So I'll be wiring up the positive to one pin here, the negative to the middle pin. The positive side of the switch, one on here and one in the middle. The negative on the other side, one here, one in the middle. That way I don't have to join any wires together. It saves me on making up connections. But I'll show that when I come to solder it all together. So for now, that's basically the modification done. I'm going to go off and paint it. I'll catch you all shortly. So I went away and I've given it a spray over with paint, but it could really do with a second coat, and same goes for the base. It's a little bit short on paint as I ran out, and I've also run out of time to respray it. So I've popped in the components, nothing is attached yet, except for the switch, which is screwed in place. Got a display which is going to need some epoxy to firm it up. Once I'm done, I just want some epoxy putty around the outside. And the atomizer connector is also going to want to build up with epoxy putty to hold it all in place. But for now, I'm ready to start soldering components in place, which is basically going to involve these wires and nothing else. So I'll grab my solder and the soldering iron, of course. Start by tinning up the 510 connector. With a good layer of solder, and on this the black and the red are the two for the battery, and the yellow and blue are for testing the resistance. And in this sort of circuit it doesn't matter which way around they go, so I'm just going to add some solder to the tip and prop the wire down in the hole. Touch more solder. And that's your atomizer soldered there. Come on. Next I've got the battery connector. I'm just going to leave it this long just so it's easy to use, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the other end shortly. I'll just clean off my tip. I need to solder up the various contacts I'm going to be using. And basically it's going to be the top four, as using these connection points are going to give me what I want for switch position. So when the switch is down into what would naturally be an on position, it's going to work in that way. I'm going to start off with the negative on this side. The only problem with using these sort of contacts is there's not really a lot of room to get your soldering in. You just want to hold the wire to it.
Right, after much jiggery pokery, I've managed to get that working. Now, this difficult display to see, but you can see that display is now coming up down in there. It was simply just a case of getting the earth wire in place, which can be a bit tricky. In the end, what I had to do is fan it out and clamp it in again. Not the best design in the world, but working. So back to life again and working. It was literally just a case of getting it right. When you're trying to rush and do it on screen, it just wasn't working. But I I've clamped that down in there now, and that is all firing away on 4 cylinders. It was pretty much identical to the repair that I had to do on this particular one, which is the SID that also come to me, and same again, that is firing. I'll probably take that apart again in a bit more detail, and probably take the board out and put a new at some point a new neg wire on there and clamp it in properly. At the moment that is just sort of hanging on, and it probably would fail again. But this type of mod, pretty much identical, other than this has got the display, smoke display, and this one's got the, you know, metal tube. Same makeup, same thing virtually. The problem I've also had, we're moving on and looking at this one here, which is the vamo, had exactly the same problem here with this SVD that come into me. Now this wasn't functioning completely, and it was down to the rubber. It is now functioning. And functioning quite well, apart from I need a new coil in my doodah. Now with this, these are the heads. If you're lucky enough, this one is very, very, very worn. You can work out the top cap. And when you work out your top cap, you can see, I can actually straight away see, if I try and show you this in a bit more detail, let's just go down ever so slightly. Down inside there you can see I've got the back end of a grommet down in there. That's my grommet. I've got my earth, which is attached to, now this is where the vamo is a much better sort of mod in terms of the way that the earth is attached. It is actually soldered, that they put a physical solder pin on there for the neg. Now what we can do on this is try and clamp this down, and we can just try and free our neg wire and our pos off the atty. I don't think our pos is going to take much work at all. Saying that, it's going to prove to be a bugger. Here's my 2 bits off. I'll leave my solder point there, and you can see straight away there is the back end of my rubber, and my centre pin is literally just falling out, completely and utterly falling out. What we need to do on this is get a new rubber inserted, and it'll be a simple case of soldering this pin back in. What I'm going to do is go away and strip out an atty connection. I might not even use this pin, I might use another one, but I'm going to go away, strip out this atty. Actually I will use another one. Strip out this, give this a clean up, and I'll pop back in 2.
So why can't I say something to change this situation? Well, no great words of wisdom springing to my mind. What have I done to deserve this aggravation? No, I never said I'm perfect. If I did, it was a lie. Meet me halfway. Do I have to get a stick so you can beat me once again? Meet me halfway, 'cause you're not fair. 'Cause I've tried so hard to get to know you, but you're not giving anything away. I've tried every trick in the book to try to break you down, but I stand defeated. I hold my hands up now, you beat me hands down, yeah. So why do you use me to vent all your frustrations? Yeah, why does everything that I say have to be a lie? And why are you so deeply into confrontations? 'Cause I'm not going nowhere, and you'll miss me when I die. Meet me halfway. Do I have to get a stick so you can beat me once again? Meet me halfway. 'Cause you're not fair. 'Cause I've tried so hard to get to know you, but you're not giving anything away. I've tried every trick in the book to try to break you down, but I stand defeated. I hold my hands up now, you beat me hands down, Lord, Lord. Another day, another dollar. You do the leading, I'll just follow. And we'll do the same thing tomorrow.
Liberty Flight sponsors 10-year tip with Garry Dibley. Liberty Flight sponsors 10-year tip with Garry Dibley.
And there we go, we're back in the room once again. Yes, as you can see, the blatant plug for the Children Need raffle. The ticket sales are now live, and they are on. If you go to the UK Vapors Forum, I'm trying to keep everything centralised within the UK Vapors Forum. Everything is there within the sort of competitions and charity auction type place things. Loads more stuff coming in, lots of PMs coming in, lots of people sending me stuff. I am getting from Flavour Art UK. They are making some juice. I believe they made it this weekend. It's going to be called Dibley's Drizzle. That will also get 5 bottles of 30ml of my drizzle, apparently. I'm not even going to sample it. No, I'm sure it's going to be very, very nice. But yeah, that's coming in, and I've got some really good stuff. I've got some pipes or pipe and stuff coming in from some very, very, very good modders. So I'll update that again very, very shortly. Cracking on. With the grommets, you can, as was so rightly pointed out by very boring, you can use there are many things that you can replace your grommets with. You'll see what my personal preference is. There are certain types of atomizers that have a very, very good grommet insert. One of them appears to be the sort of the ego heads that you get. Some of those have got a very, very solid rubber insert. Some of the 510 connections you can get have a very solid rubber insert. Some of the really sort of flexy silicone ones, they're just terrible. I mean, you know, it frustrates me. The guys are churning these out in China, and they turn out the atty connections. Why the hell they can't make a decent rubber? I would never buy condoms made in China. It is as simple as that. Let's crack on. I'll pop back into Mark finishes off his big Rose's tin, which is an atomizer building station with resistance tester. Next week I've got a Boeing 747 landing in the garden to try and top the big mod scale. Pop back in two.
It would really help if I stop moving the wire while it's still hot. Now what is happening here is the very thing I don't want to do, and that's I'm starting to cook the switch. Looks like I'm going to have to re-tin this wire. And that's it done. Oh, the secret of everything. Make sure you tin your wires properly before you start. So now being very careful to make sure I'm certain to keep the red to red and black to black. That's one done. Also left a little. Just a second one. Basically that's all your soldering done. So you connect down slot on the board. My battery will fit on here. And I didn't look at all when I turned it off. It should have a working display. Flick the switch and it's off. Of course it's registering 1 at the moment because it's an open circuit here, which is a good thing, means I haven't got any shorts on it. Now, one thing I haven't discussed is the battery. As you might have noticed, I haven't bothered with any sort of holder for it. You just got the wire. And that is because I'm going to be using magnets. Which means I can pop this battery anywhere I want on the board. If I just whack a few wires there. That's more than enough to hold it all in place, and that's going nowhere. So to give you an idea of where you're at, there you go. If I move the light out of the way, it might be a lot easier to see. So, next job I need to do before we're finished is to add a layer of epoxy to all of this. I want to fix a few of these wires down out the way a bit, just some dabs of epoxy I think, and firm up these connections with the epoxy putty. So I'll mix them up and I'll be right back. So I added a good layer of epoxy to hold these in place and just tack the wires down, and hopefully I've now got a good support here. It's had a good half hour to set, so hopefully should be all good. So if I just pop it together, there we have a working display, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but this atomizer is currently reading 2.2 ohms on here, and if I pop it off, and screw it into the display, I also get a nice 2.2 ohms. I've got a nice big surface area to work with here, so it'll be handy for rebuilding, just handy for testing, and I've got the storage underneath for all my supplies, tools, etc. So there you have it. A nice atty station with built-in storage, or an old tin of roses reused, depending on which way you want to look at it. All that'll be left for me to do is to give this a wipe down with a cloth to get rid of the odd bits and make it nice and neat. And a quick tip, if you're going to be working with this epoxy putty, best tip I can give you, keep your hands, your fingers wet when you're working with it, that way it doesn't stick to it and it makes it a lot easier to work with. But that's what I've got for this week. How I'm going to top this next week, I haven't got a clue, but you'll have to turn up to find out. So, catch you all later.
Okay, so basically I've cleaned up the thread inside here, and what I've done is deconstructed a 510 atomizer. I've got our centre pin here, I've got our new rubber here which is undamaged, and this bit here I will put to one side. Now these you can use for other things, particularly you can, if you're stripping out an atty for bits, an atty connection, you can use these to embed in mods for or you know, holders. So dual purpose really. Now what I need to do is, one of the jobs I hate doing, basically trying to insert a rubber. They can be tricky little buggers, but what I tried to do is get them in with a pair of fine nose, and then a little screwdriver. I just try and ease the rubber into the hole. Now it's going to be difficult to show you as we're doing this, but that is popped in like so, and you can see it back through the other end and in there. Then what I do is just put my screwdriver in and give that a little roll around inside there to make sure it's bedded in. The next stage, and I'm going to use the one from the atty connection, is because these are nice and flat, better spread of pressure than these, because as you can see that's quite a straight pin, whereas these they seem to spread the pressure better on the rubbers. So what I tend to do is drop me pin in there and then I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of pressure and just ease that in ever so slightly, like so. And you can see a new pin down in there on our vamo, and it popping through the back end. Now it's a bit more tricky because this is designed to pop right up to make it easier to solder, but hopefully we should be able to get down in there with some solder and just tin that up again to retake our wires. Just put a fresh bit on there. Now while that's cooling, what I'll do is just test my mod. Now I'll put a battery in there. Here's my battery, screw it up, and I should be able to do my 5-button press, or 6, nothing. Common mistake if you're testing a mod like this, it needs an earth. So you've got to sandwich your earth pin against the body, because this would be on the mod. You've got to try and find a decent bit of earth, and it will come up. Now I just want to test everything. It's on, and I can cycle through me wattages. Now it's probably going to be really bright to see, but that is working up and down with the wattages, etc, etc. So I know it's working. I'm just going to take the battery out while I solder this up, and it should be a simple case of pos pin, neg pin. I know it looked incredibly easy to get that rubber down in there, and it is if you use the right tools. This is going to be difficult seeing, but I'm just going to drop the pos wire down inside on that. I'll put my neg wire up against there and get that onto the neg tab. So my head's back on my vamo. Now I'm just going to rest it in there for the minute without pressuring it down, just to check it fires up. And straight away, let me zoom out. So I've not push fitted my head back on yet, but just by starting to screw this cap on, I've got that on. And I should be able to change my wattages up and down and all that sort of stuff. So that's working. Let me just pressurise this head on a little bit. Bear me one tick. And what I tend to do with this is just straight down on the bench, upside down, palm of the hand, down. That should keep that in place. Should. It may need a bit of a little helping hand, because once these have been loosened up, you might need to put a bit of the old glue on it. But let's just clag an atty on. Set me voltage. About 7 should do. And a working vamo. So, despite it being ugly, it lives again. As I say, I'm sorry if that was rushed in somewhat, but very, very easy to repair. Now you can also do that. You see how much wire and slack was on there. You can, and I did with the, rather than taking the head off the SVD, I did actually do that from prising out the centre pin. It's a lot more difficult doing it this way. Prising out the centre pin while it's still attached to the wire, desoldering the middle pin, getting the old grommet out over the top of that wire, and then inserting a grommet back in over the wire. It's an absolute pain in the arse. But for something like this, I didn't want to muller the head on, because you can see the condition of this. I didn't want to muller it by attempting to get the head off. A vamo I'm quite happy to muller, and the owner was quite happy to muller it, but it's working, and they said if I can get it working again and get it back to them, happy days. It's bad to hell, but it's probably something I take to work with them. Don't know, could be. Again, same thing with these. Now this was a lot of jiggery pokery, but it is just a simple case of where the earth met the body. It's as light as hell, this. They are decent little mods, but you get a fault in there, 9 times out of 10 your board's not going to fail. It's going to be a connection problem. It's going to be the earth or the positive. Resolder up the pos, resolder up the neg, clamp it back together again, job's good. A lot of buggering around. If it doesn't work first time, try again. Like I say, it took me a lot of messing to get that earth wire back on and making a contact. Same with the SID, same sort of scenario. This works exactly the same way as this. It's just a different format on the display on the top. But they are all functioning, they're all working, they're all repaired. Don't give up on a mod if it fails. If you don't want to, if you don't want to mod a mod into a tin or something, you've seen what we've done with the boards off these into a tin. They can be rejuvenated, and for the price of what's an atty connection, couple of quid, you can get your mod working again. Happy days. I hope that was useful, and I'll see you back in the studio.
And there we go, we are back in the room once again. A quick thing. On Tuesday we have Vapor Scene coming up, followed by DE Talk. On Wednesday we have VT Talk. On Thursday we've got the Haze Hour. On Friday, obviously tune in to RY4, and obviously throughout the week there are shows going on RY4 from around about 9 o'clock. I know they tried to slot in around us, and likewise some cracking stuff on there. Tune into RY4 directly after this show. And on Sunday we've got Dave and his tackle box back once again. A very quick thank you to everybody who has donated thus far to the Children in Need thing that we're doing. There's been lots going on, lots of people contributing this year, outside of anything I'm doing. Todd from Todd's Reviews and all of his followers have put in loads. And vendors have just been putting in sort of £100 here, £100 there, which has been fantastic. As of this moment in time, the running total is £3,685.99, including the gift aid of £744.50, which is on top of that, is phenomenal. A big thank you to all of you guys who have done that, and please, I would love, before we do the live draw on the 2nd of December, I'd love to hit 4K. That would be amazing. If we can hit 4,000 with the gift aid, we'd be somewhere near the 5 mark. That would just be amazing. We started off the first year 2 years ago 700 quid ish. Last year 1,500 quid. This year, if we can hit 5 grand, massive. It just shows how vaping has grown, and the willingness of people to get involved in something like that. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. It has been emotional once again. We will see you back here next week, where God knows what will happen, but we'll do something. We'll see you then. Cheers guys. Good night.
Liberty Flight sponsors 10-Year Tip with Garry Dibley.